Okay, so the first question was asking us to solve this equation. It says by factoring. What is the first step, please?
So the equal to 0.
Right. So I will do two things in one step. I will write x squared plus 6x minus 7 equals 0. Would you all agree? Yes? Good. So now I will factor. How do I factor this?
X plus 6 and then 0. What's x plus 6?
But if I write 6, what will I multiply
got it.
6 by to get negative 7?
My bad.
So I get stuck there.
Yeah, I didn't notice something. X plus 7.
Good.
And then x minus 1.
And x,
It's x.
because the product is negative 7. So if I put 7 here, this will be 8. And this will be positive. Correct? So then there are two options, x equals and x equals.
1 and negative 7.
Very good. Do you all agree with this? We agree with the first one? Okay, the second one.
Question on this
Yes.
one. Didn't you say that we wouldn't be using factoring by squares or completing the square?
I didn't say that. I said it's a legitimate method, but I will never use it unless I'm forced to, because completing the square alone will not solve the quadratic equation. It will only get us to the setting in which we have to use the square root. We have to apply the square root.
So we should expect that on our test?
Yes, please. Yes. Not more than one question, but one question will be complete the square. Yes. So one more time. What I said is it's not the best method. It doesn't alone, it does not solve the quadratic equation. So you complete the square and then what? You have to apply square roots to both sides, because completing the square alone will not complete the job, the task. So the next one was x squared minus 6x plus 3. And here we were asked to complete the square. What will be the first step? So I identify the middle coefficient. It's negative 6. Then, good. And I get negative 3. Then, good. And I get 9. Very good. And I add 9 to both sides. So this is x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals, I move 3, negative 3 plus 9. What do I get on the left-hand side? Very good. X minus 3, everything squared. And the right-hand side is 6. As I mentioned, complete the square alone will not complete the task. So what do I do next? Say it again. It's in the way. It has to. I'm adding 9 to both sides, and at the same time I'm moving 3. You don't have to do it in one step. So what happens next? What do we do now? How do we solve this equation? Very good. Excellent. So then I have x minus 3 equals? Careful, careful, careful. Thank you. Very good. And then finally I add 3. So x equals 3 plus or minus square root of x. I know it's quadratic. It has to have two solutions. If I omit to write plus or minus, I only determine 1 out of 2. Any questions on this? Okay. So then we have the next question was solving 5x plus 1 squared plus 2 times 5x plus 1 and minus 3 equals 0. If you wanted to, I suggested use a substitution. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I think it's wise to use a substitution. Any suggestions? How will you continue?
You substitute 5x plus 1 for y.
Very good. So then the new equation becomes
Y squared plus 2y minus 3.
excellent. And this is not difficult to factor. The leading coefficient is 1. So that should not be a problem. How do I factor this?
Y plus 3.
Excellent.
Y minus 1.
Perfect. So then I have two solutions in y. And they are?
-3 and 1.
Very good. But this is not good enough. It's good but not good enough. Now this is a new equation. Which equation is that?
5x plus 1 equals 9.
Very good. Okay? And this is another equation, which is?
5x plus 1.
Very good. So now how do I solve this equation?
Minus 1 divided by 5.
Very good. 5x equals -4, x equals -4/5. And here, I subtract 1 from both sides, and I get that 5x equals 0, then x must be 0 indeed. Perfect. Any questions on this problem? Okay, these are a major part of this test. Okay. Then we're asked to graph this function, f of x, -2, x plus 2 squared plus 4. So what do you think?
Step 1, find the vertex.
Very good. However, I would have started with the shape, but you're
Or
right.
shape.
The order is not important. You can start with the vertex and then put the shape in. So what is the shape? If we want to start with a shape.
There's a maximum.
Yes, because this is the leading coefficient. Indeed, it's a maximum. Perfect. And 2, the vertex is easy to determine.
4.
Careful.
4, 2.
Careful. Okay, let me write the function in that form.
Yeah. -2.
Ah, indeed, the vertex is -2, 4. Perfect. That's okay. That's why we're here. That's why we review it. That's okay. I guarantee it's okay. Okay, so then step number 3. X-intercepts. But only if they exist. I don't want to waste my time. Do they exist?
Yes.
How do I know they exist?
The vertex is above the x-axis.
Exactly, because the y-coordinate is a positive number. So they exist. How do I get them?
Set y equal to 0.
Excellent. So then -2, x plus 2 squared plus 4 equals 0. I know how to solve this equation. What do I have to do first?
Subtract 4.
Excellent. What do I have to do next?
Square and distribute.
Careful,
Or distribute 0.
careful. We have 4 methods of solving quadratic equations. And this is already set very easily for one of them. But I'm not there yet. I need one more step. Say it again. Just a couple of minutes ago, we just did this. We just did this. Just a couple of minutes ago. Right? It's exactly the same equation. But I have one more step before I can take the square root from both sides. What is that step? I cannot distribute because of the order of operations. The order of exactly. The order of operations forces me to square first, which I don't want to do, and then I will be able to distribute -2. But I don't want to do that either. Exactly. So divide both sides by -2. The left-hand side is x plus 2 squared. The right-hand side is 2. Now I'm ready to apply the square root to both sides. So then I get x plus 2 equals so then x equals -2 plus or minus square root of 2. I must approximate these because I don't know where to plot them. Yes, Rebecca, I had a question. Go ahead. You may see something I don't, and you may help me in my presentation if you... Oh, okay. So the square root of 2 is 1.41. Negative 2 minus 1.41 is negative 3.41. Negative 2 plus 1.41, the other one, negative 2 plus 1.41 is roughly, what is it, positive 0.59. So these are the two solutions, the x-intercepts. Yes? Plot negative 2 plus the square root of 2. Where will you plot it?
I mean, you're right. I'm just saying I wasn't aware.
But you have to graph the function, right?
Yeah.
So if you tell me plot for me negative 2 plus the square root of 2 comma 0, I'll have to do my homework and say, okay, so then you want me to plot the negative 2 minus 1.41. Oh, you want me to plot 0.59 comma 0, because otherwise you don't know, right? So then these are the two solutions. So negative 3.41 comma 0 and 0.59 comma 0. Now step number 4. What is step number 4? Very good. So how do I determine the y-intercept, which will always exist? How do I get that?
So x equals 0.
Exactly. I said x equal to 0. Let's do this together. 0 plus 2. 2 squared. 4. 4 times negative 2. Negative 8 plus 4. That's it. So 0 comma negative 4. Now the last two are just words, right? But they're important words, 5 and 6. Axis of symmetry. Can anyone give us the axis of symmetry? I cannot write negative 2. I have to write an equation. You're correct. But I have to write an equation. Negative 2 is not an equation. Perfect. Good. And does this function have a max or a min? Okay. So then the max of f of x is 4. Very good. So now I have all the information necessary for the graph. Can anyone, without even graphing, give us the range?
4.
Say it again.
4.
But it has a maximum. Very good. Excellent. Negative infinity to positive 4. Good. Okay. So ready to graph? So when I graph a parabola, I have to start with a vertex. And the vertex is negative 2 comma 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, so about here. Then I continue with the axis of symmetry, which is not part of the graph, therefore it will only be a dotted line. So x equals negative 2. Then I continue with the x-intercepts, and there are two distinct x-intercepts, negative 3.41 and 0.59. I have to make sure that these two distances are equal, this distance and this distance, because these 2 points have to be symmetric with respect to this line. And I also have 0 comma negative 4, which is the y-intercept. Now I'm ready to graph the function. And this is f of x, negative 2, x plus 2 squared plus 4. My graph is not perfect. As you see, this side is not perfectly symmetric. Good. Back to chapter 11 review on page 708 and page 709. From what you've seen in the last few minutes, is there something that you would like to do again or another one?
Completing the square.
Okay, very good. On page 708, solve the equation by completing the square. Number 5, z squared plus 3z plus 1 equals 0. What is the first step here towards solving this equation by completing the square? Okay, the middle coefficient. Okay, which is? Good. I divide it by 2 and I have to leave it as a fraction. I have to square this fraction. What do I get? Careful, one more time. Very good, excellent. So this is what I add to both sides. So I have z squared plus 3z plus 9 over 4 equals negative 1 plus 9 over 4. And I moved 1 to the other side. So I added 9 over 4 to both sides, and I said, yes, Rebecca? Yes. So the middle coefficient, 3.
Right.
I divide it by 2.
Right.
And I square this fraction. When I square a fraction, I square the top and I square the bottom. So this is the number that I need to add to both sides. And I take 1 out of the way, because I need to complete the square on the left. So what is the left-hand side? Say it again. Z. Very good. Excellent. Equals. Now the right-hand side, please. The least common denominator is 4. You have to multiply negative 1 by 4. So negative 4 plus 9 is 5. So this is 5 over 4. So this method alone cannot solve the equation. So now I need to remember to apply a different method, which is say it again.
Square.
Not square. Take the square root indeed. So then the left-hand side is z plus 3 halves. The right-hand side?
Square.
Nope. Thank you. The square root of 5 over. Excellent. So then z equals negative 3 halves plus or minus the square root of 5 over 2. Is there anything else that you would like to see where I choose something else to solve? Say it again, Morgan. Okay. What about problem 25 on page 708? Any questions on this problem? (25) on 708. X to 2/3 minus 6x to 1/3 plus 5 equals 0.
Factor by substitution.
Correct. So first I will say let y be
1/3. X to 1.
x to 1/3. Correct. So then the new equation is written how?
X.
Yes? Yes? Excellent. Which is not difficult to factor because the leading coefficient is 1. I don't have to use the long method. Very good.
Y plus 5, Y plus 1.
Very good. Careful. Correct. Yes. Y.
Minus 5.
Yes.
And y minus 1.
Correct. So then we have two solutions in y. And they are?
1.
Very good. Therefore, we have two new equations. Can anyone dictate the two new equations that we need to solve?
X 1/3.
Good to 1/3 equals?
1. And
Perfect.
X to 1/3 equals 5.
Very good. Do we all see this step? Yes? Okay. What do I do to both sides to get x by itself? X to power 1. Yes. Yes. Excellent. Good. So the first one will give us x equals, good, and the second one will give us x equals, and yes, we have to go back and check, but they will work. The cube root of 1 is 1. The cube root of 125 is 5. Okay. Going back to page 704. Problem 61 on 704.
Can you just
Yes, go ahead.
ask, why is it y minus 5 and y minus 1?
Y times y is y squared. Y times negative 1 is negative y. Negative 5 times y is negative 5y. Negative y minus 5y is negative 6y.
To solve that, you do the whole like x times triangle equals.
Say it again.
To like break it down to that, you do this the whole thing where it's like x times a number's in the number equals 5, then a number plus a number equals negative 6.
Yes. So you need two numbers whose product is 5 and whose sum is negative 6.
Negative 1.
Only negative 1 and negative 5 will solve both. Is that okay? So that's how we got this. Okay. 61 on 704. Find two numbers whose difference is 10 and whose product is as small as possible. So find two numbers whose difference is 10. Can anyone give us an equation or something that expresses that? Two numbers whose difference is 10. What will I write?
It's not just x minus y equals 10.
Of course. And now what will be the product of these two numbers? One number is x, the other number is y. What will be the product of these two? How do you write it?
What is the product between 10?
Okay, so the difference is 10. The product is how? How do I write the product? Of course. So the product is x times y. We're only told that the difference is 10, but we don't have any other information about the product. Okay, we're only told this. These two numbers differ by 10. Find the numbers such that they have the smallest possible product. Okay, so I'm looking at this function, but I see it has two variables. This is one variable, this is the other variable. I don't know how to address functions with two variables. So I have to make one variable disappear. How can I make it disappear? I can only look at the equation I'm given and think. So what do I have to do? What do you think we'll have to do? I have to solve for one of the variables, right? I have to use the information I'm given. I am told that the difference of these two numbers is 10. I have to use it in order to eliminate one of the variables. If I want to eliminate y, then I will take this equation and solve it for y. So negative y equals negative x plus 10, and I'll multiply both sides by negative 1. So I have y as a function of x, and all I have to do is just plug it in. So p now is a function of x, which is x times x minus 10, which is x squared minus 10x. Everything revolves around quadratic functions. The entire chapter deals with quadratic functions. So does this function have a minimum?
Yep.
Good. How do I find the minimum? Excellent. How do I find the minimum of a quadratic function? What do I have to determine? Excellent. I have to find the vertex. Good. How do I find the x-coordinate of the vertex?
Negative b over 2x.
Excellent. B. Negative 10. 2 times 1 is 2. So how much is this?
Negative 5.
There is a minus here and a minus here, so it's 5. Good. Okay, then if x is 5, looking here, what will you say about y? How much? Well, 5 minus 10 is not 0, but
5.
negative 5. So what is the product of these two numbers that differ by 10? Very good. So here's the final answer. The product, the minimum, I would say, the minimum product of two numbers that differ by 10 is how much? The minimum product of two numbers that differ by 10 is excellent. The numbers are very good. The numbers are 5 and negative 5. I'm sorry? It's all about the quadratic function. I'm sorry? 5, which is x, and y, which is negative 5. We started with the product. So x times y is negative 25. Or you go back and you plug in 5 in the function, and you will get negative 25. It's the y coordinate of the vertex. So once I have the x, I plug it in, and I get the y coordinate, which is the product. Okay, let's practice this. 63. The length and width of a rectangle must have a sum of 40. So this is x, this is y. The length and the width must have a sum of 40. Can anyone tell us what to write? Very good. Now I read on. Find the dimensions of the rectangle that will have a maximum area. Very good. So indeed, the area is x times y. However, I'm having the same difficulty again. I see two variables in a function. But I just did a similar example, which will tell me what to do next. What will I do next? Good, excellent. So let's say we solve this equation for good. Excellent. All I have to do is plug it in. And now I can say a is a function of x only. X multiplied by. Very good. Of course, I will distribute negative x squared plus 40x. And now I'm asked to find x and y such that the area is as maximum as possible. There is maximum. So I look at this function, I'll say, what type of function is this? Good. Does it have a max or a min? Max, because the leading coefficient is negative. When the leading coefficient is negative, it has a maximum. Good. How do I find the maximum? What do I have to do in order to find the maximum of this function? Very good. So how do I find the vertex? Very good. Negative 40 over 2 times negative 1. So what is the x coordinate of the vertex? Very good. Okay. So if x is 20, how much is y? Good. So x is 20. Do I have the measurement unit? Did they say? They didn't say anything. So good. So then what will be the area? Which is 2 zeros, right? 2 times 2 and 2 zeros. So it turns out that the rectangle with the largest area is actually, it's actually what? A square. X is 20, Y is 20.
And y is 400.
That's the area.
So y, if y is 20, y is
So
400.
this Y is different from this Y. This Y is the maximum area. This Y is the length of the rectangle. So once I have X, which is 20, I will determine the length, which is also 20. But when I'm asked to find the area, 20 times 20 will be 400. Because when X is 20, I have to go back and plug it in. Just plug it in and see what you get. So now the answer is the maximum area of a rectangle whose sum of length plus width is 40. The maximum area is what? 400. The dimensions of the rectangle, which is actually a square of the square, are 20 by 20. One more time, the maximum area of a rectangle whose sum of length and width is 40. The maximum area is 400. The dimensions of the square, because it's no longer a rectangle, are 20 by 20. So from now on, we will remember that the rectangle with the largest area, it's actually a square. Okay. Any questions? Let's look at 56. On page 704. Ibrahim throws a ball upward with an initial speed of 32 feet per second, then its height h in feet after t seconds is given by the equation. H of t equals negative 16t squared plus 32t. Find the maximum height of the ball. So we're throwing a ball up in the air. It reaches the maximum height and then it drops to the ground. We're asked to find the maximum height. What type of function is this? Good. How do I find the maximum? Good. So then the vertex. How do I find the x-coordinate of the vertex? Which is negative 32 over 2 times negative 16, which is negative 32. So how many seconds does the ball need to reach its maximum? Very good. 1 second. Good. So now we're not really asked how long it takes the ball to reach the maximum, but we're really asked to find the maximum. How do I find the maximum height? Exactly. So the max height is nothing else but h of 1. So negative 16 plus 32 equals 16 feet. Any questions? Any questions?
Is that symbol of the 2A?
This one?
Yeah.
Negative b, b as in boy, lowercase b, over 2a. I'm sorry? Negative 16 plus 32 is 16. So when we throw a ball with an initial velocity of 16 feet per second up in the air, it reaches the maximum height in 1 second, and that height is 16. Now what if I ask, which is not in the book, but in the problem, but I'm going to ask this. How long it takes the ball to hit the ground? So I have it right here. I throw it up in the air, it reaches its maximum, and then it hits the ground. I would like to determine how long it takes the ball to hit the ground. How do I think about that? Say it again.
You need feet to be 0.
The height has to be 0. Yes, Danielle?
You're gonna say the x-intercept.
Yes. In other words, the height is 0. H of t is 0. Perfect. So h of t is negative 16t squared plus 32t equals 0. So then how do I solve this equation? Say it again. So one more time, I'll copy it here. Negative 16t squared plus 32t equals 0. First, I want to simplify it. Negative. Especially because I don't want to have a negative leading coefficient. So can anyone dictate the new equation after you divide both sides by negative 16? Careful. Good. And now, what would you recommend we do? Say it again, please. Would you have preferred this or this? Isn't this much easier than that? Okay, good. Say it again. I will never do that. I will never do that unless you force me to. That's the very last thing I will ever do when I solve a quadratic equation. Because it's cumbersome, it's long, and it doesn't really solve the equation. I still have to use taking square roots. Well, you have to think in terms of the strategy. That's why I reviewed the entire chapter 6 with you. It's what? What is it? It's a binomial. It's in descending order. Does it have a negative leading coefficient? We already took care of that. Does it have a common factor? Which is? Of course. Yeah, if you omit, if you don't go through the strategy, you will get stuck. We talked about that. So there is a common factor, which is t, and I pull it out. So therefore, there are two options. What are the options? Right. Right. So 0 seconds and 2 seconds. So this is the easiest type of quadratic equation. Why? Because it doesn't have the free term. It cannot get easier than this. Okay, so the ball is on the ground at 0 seconds. I throw it up in the air. It hits the ground in 2 seconds later. So it hits the ground after we throw it in 2 seconds. In 1 second, it reaches the maximum, and 1 more second to hit the ground. So total 2 seconds. And this is the initial value, of course, times 0. Any questions on this? Any questions on this? Okay. Say it again.
That's what we did at the beginning of the chapter.
So you want to review that?
Yeah.
Good. That's at the end of chapter 6. Just factoring or solving? Say it again. Factoring? Okay, perfect. Let's say 85, which is 6 on page 412. 6x cubed minus 28x squared plus 16x. I'm looking at my phone just to make sure. I think we're down to the last 5 weeks. Just looking at the calendar. Okay. So we have our test on the 10th. Then we'll have 15th, 17th, and 22nd. 3 meetings. And after Thanksgiving, we will have 2 more. So in 3 meetings,
So
Let's
we're
do it.
only
5.
off for Thanksgiving. Is that the only class we're missing?
yes. So if you have a class on Fridays, you're going to miss that too.
Okay.
If you have a class on Wednesday night, you'll miss that too. On Wednesday before Thanksgiving, we close at 4 p.m.
Cool.
So we are down to, I'm counting again. I'm hoping that the test is not going to take more than an hour on Thursday. So, say it again. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus 2 review for the final exam. So 5 more meetings, out of which 1 is a test. So actually in 4 meetings, we have to finish chapter 7, which will not be difficult. After the effort we put in for chapter 6, chapter 7 will not be difficult. And chapter 12, but not the entire chapter 12, just certain things in chapter 12. Okay, so we're asked to factor this. I cannot stress enough, starting from this weekend on, please review all quizzes and all tests every weekend. If you want to get to be strong going into strong algebra skills going into the final exam and not have any difficulties with the final, you must redo all tests several times between now and the final exam. Okay, what do you recommend here? Yes, it's in descending order, it's a trinomial, and there is a common factor, and there is no negative leading coefficient. What is the common factor? 2x. You have to pull out everything. So what is left in parentheses? Careful. 3x squared minus, yes, plus, good. So now let's look at 3x squared minus 14x plus 8. It's not a special product, and 1 is not the leading coefficient. So let's work on this quickly. And give me the factored form of 3x squared minus 14x plus 8.